As many of you know, I'm a big fan of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Stuck with it far longer than Riverdale. I'm still with the show, even though you're going to see I don't have the greatest things to say about part 3. But one of the things that has made this such a good show is its ambition. Well, unfortunately, it feels more like a movie. I don't know if that's because it's on Netflix or not, but it has felt less teen drama-y than Riverdale, even though, of course, that's very much a part of the show's DNA. But unfortunately, I feel with part 3, it finally bit off more than it could chew, which makes it the weakest part yet. But that said, it still has its moments because, again, it's a really good show. And I'm still very excited for part 4, which has already been greenlight, and I really kind of, I guess you have to pass through this to get to that. And, that's a very good way to describe it because it was a bit of a chore to get through these 8 new episodes. Whereas with the first 2 parts and the holiday special, I found myself thoroughly engaged. All right, so what's the problem? As I said, it was a couple of problems. The biggest one is that it bit off, as I said, way more than it could chew. If you can't afford to portray things like hell, or even, I think it was Scotland, don't write that into your script. I totally can tell where the movie, it's nice that I called it a movie. I can totally tell where the show is, cheating and cutting corners budget-wise. Just because your character says that's what's going on doesn't mean I'm going to believe it. And often I didn't. Like, oh my, hell looks exactly like every location where this show has already been shot? Come on. I also felt that Hell's throne room and Lilith's dress, why would Lilith not look amazing, right? I thought those things were particularly disappointing. Also, the characters, for some reason, I felt seemed off. And I'll be curious to see how you feel about this, but Sabrina's hair seemed like a wig this season. I don't know if it is or not, but it just looked off. Even her lipstick application looked a little off. It was weird. Harvey's hair, a couple of shades too dark. I was like, why is his hair suddenly darker? I mean, everyone looked like themselves, but kind of not. It just irked me a little bit. I was like, are you rushing the show? Are these actors not ready to come back? What's going on? They're not really doing anything else from as far as we can tell, right? And speaking of being out of character, after all the work they did to get to a good place, the new drama between Nick and Sabrina seems super contrived. Obviously just there for the sake of creating drama. So here's something that really threw me. And this is difficult because, I'm not a member of the LGBT community, so I'm not sure what members of that community would like to see. So I really want your feedback on this, especially after you see the show. This is a non-spoiler review, or I'm not going to give anything really big away, but this is such an odd choice by the show. I feel we should discuss it here. And I'm not giving the whole thing away. All right, so anyway, Theo has a new love interest, right? And after all the work that was done with his trans storyline, very bold work and worth applauding, to have him fall for, I believe the term is a cis male character, and for their relationship to seemingly have classic male-female dynamics, at least that's how it seemed to me. Again, I don't know how the LGBT community is going to feel about that. I don't know what they want with the Theo character, but I don't think this is it. Same for Ambrose, who seems to have lost all his pansexuality in his new relationship with Prudence. It's like suddenly Theo seems like Theo in name only instead of in his core being, which the show worked very hard to. I mean, as much as Theo says, oh, I'm so happy you accept me as I am, I'm like, you don't seem that different than you did before, to be perfectly honest. So it doesn't seem to have the level of representation that it once did. Again, I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts about this, especially if you remember the LGBT community. There is a surprise twist at the end of part 3, which I think is supposed to maybe make up for these other losses, but it comes out of nowhere, so it also seems very contrived and pandering-y. I also feel there's a lot of the same stuff going on here as in the first 2 parts. Blackwood is still a problem. Hilda and Zelda still don't communicate. Prudence still has daddy issues. Lilith is still threatened by the Dark Lord. Sabrina still can't decide between being human or a witch. The show has kind of a clever answer to that in the final episode, the season finale, or part 3 finale, where the show goes all Avengers Endgame, and that was the best part of the show. In fact, I almost feel like it could have just been maybe 1 or 2 episodes this season, like a special, instead of an entire season, because that stuff was interesting. So I want to see where the story goes next. And also, I'm very curious about Father Blackwood's twins, which do return, and that's all I'm going to say. They're also immediately sidelined after they're very interestingly reintroduced, so I'm excited to get back to them. And also, I just love these characters. So let's talk about the good. So while her look is off in part 3, Sabrina is still the role that Kiernan Shipka was born to play. She perfectly personifies the real magic of this show, and that simultaneously laughing at itself high camp, but also taking itself deeply seriously as a story about witchcraft and paganism and all that. I think that's really, and the show clearly in some ways does its research. Shipka's ability to discuss, chant, and question spells while making it all seem totally believable continues to be impressive. And everyone here is likable. The whole cast is likable. So I'll just tell you my favorites, and I'll be curious to hear your favorites down below as well. Ross Lynch's Harvey is great. Michelle Gomez's Lilith, love that character. Chance Perdomo's Ambrose, and Lucy Davis's Hilda. Jazz Sinclair's Roz and Taddy Gabriel's Prudence have grown as characters over the past, part 2, and so they've become new favorites of mine, but both are tragically sidelined here yet again. There's little developments with them, but it's a shame to see them not get more to do when both actresses are just so darn good and their characters are so interesting. But they're sidelined for new characters, and I like the new characters, to be honest with you. While their relationship to me does seem problematic, I thought that Jonathan Whitesell is still very charismatic as Robin. He has like a really interesting look and smile. It fits very well with the show. And Sky Marshall's Mambo Marie is a particularly wonderful addition. I think bringing different types of magic, in this case voodoo, into the show is a fantastic idea. And I wish that more of that was done here, and I hope that's something they do more of in part 4. Again, there's potential through part 3, and you're like, more of that, and then they don't do more of that, and you're like, maybe you're saving it for part 4? I'll be back and I'll find out. And then also, while his character is a bit annoying and not at all developed, by the way, Sam Corlett is still very charismatic as Caliban. And he has a fun British accent. He does a nice job with what he's given, which isn't much. And some of the episodes do have the magic of the previous seasons. I would say my favorite is Sabrina having to collect souls for hell and finding out the deals that each person made in exchange for their souls. That was pretty cool. I don't know why it started and then stopped so suddenly, but it made for a really good episode. It was a bit procedural, a bit networky, right? Every episode we meet a new soul. So maybe a Netflix show wouldn't want to do that. But I would have preferred that to be more of the focus of the season than the stupid Carnival storyline. Too many carnivals recently. I'm done with carnivals for a while. Which, of course, the carnival's not what it seems, right? And it gets kind of Midsommar-y, but not nearly as well done as Midsommar. Midsommar outwitched Sabrina, which is understandable because, Ari Aster's just willing to go there. This show gets pretty close, but not Ari Aster level. That it takes Sabrina, her friends, and her coven so damn long to figure out what's going on when it's so freaking obvious also slows the show down a little bit and makes it a little bit frustrating to watch. You're like, it's so obviously a problem, what's wrong with you? So if you're a big fan of the show like me, of course you're going to watch part 3, and you'll enjoy parts of it. Even though, as I said, it's really just a giant setup for part 4. And I would have preferred this be maybe half the episodes, right? I would have red penned this thing. That's basically my review. I would have red penned this sucker and crossed out a whole bunch of stuff and written notes like, you can't afford to do this, so don't even try. When the show goes beyond its reach, it falters. But when it just at the precipice of being like a movie is its sweet spot, and then it's really good. And also, as I said, this also could have just maybe been like a special. That would have worked as well. So that's my non-spoiler review of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Part 3, which drops on Netflix this Friday. So share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.